Hello my friends, in this video I'm going to be sharing the 5 books that I believe every creative person should read. 4 of them are my favorites, but one of them I'm actually not the biggest fan of, but I still recommend for a very specific reason. I'll be sharing which one and why at the very end of this video, so keep on watching. The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. Okay, so there's probably a good chance that you've already heard of this book. There's a reason why it's on all of the lists for best books for artists, but if you haven't read it yet, you are in for a treat. If I were to pick up any book from this stack, it would be this one, hence why I'm putting it first. The main idea that I get from this book is that life is a battle against resistance, and Pressfield defines resistance as an energy field radiating from a work in potential. It's a repelling force, it's negative, its aim is to shove us away, distract us, prevent us from doing our work. It's the force that keeps an aspiring painter away from her studio, or makes a writer back off from the blank page. So if you've ever thought, I want to create my own art someday, or I want to start a diet someday, or I want to do X someday, that someday is resistance. Okay, I get it, resistance is scary, but what's the solution? Well, it's simple. Turn pro. Show up and do the work every day. Lean into resistance as opposed to running away from it, because oftentimes the things that we feel the most resistance towards are also the things that are most important for our growth. So if you feel resistance towards picking this book up, that might be a sign that it's actually time to give it a read. But if you're frustrated that your audience isn't growing, then you're really gonna love This Is Marketing by Seth Godin. Contrary to the title, this book is less about marketing and more about building a community, but I can still feel some of y'all bristling at the thought of reading a marketing book. Me too, I get it. But let me assure you, this is not your typical marketing book. It's not salesy, it's not businessy, which I know can be very uncomfortable for us as creatives. So here's Seth Godin explaining the book in his own words. This is a book about roots, about anchoring your work deeply in the dreams, desires, and communities of those you seek to serve. It's about changing people for the better, creating work you can be proud of, and it's about being a driver of the market, not simply being market-driven. Out of all the books that I'm going to share today, this is the one that I have read most recently, and I gotta say, it has easily become one of my favorite books that I have read this year. When I first picked it up and started reading, I could not put it down. I was making breakfast, reading. I was on the train, reading. I was just going throughout my day, and this book did not leave my side. It is that good. And the main idea that I get from this book is to have a clear definition of who you want to serve. Whereas old marketing compromises, shouts, and spams the mass market, this new wave that Seth Godin advocates for is instead about focusing in on the smallest viable audience. Everything gets easier when you walk away from the hubris of everyone. Your work is not for everyone. It's only for those who signed up for the journey. So if you're a creative and this sounds like your kind of thing, you right here watching this video are exactly the person that I want to serve with my content. And so if you want to be part of a community of other like-minded creatives who are also growing together, I would love if you joined us by subscribing. Now, as great as this book is, we are only scratching the surface. This next one is one of the most practical and enlightening books that I've read. Wired for Story by Lisa Cron, the writer's guide to using brain science to hook readers from the very first sentence. So this book is specifically for the storytellers out there. So if you're a filmmaker, a content creator, or a writer, this book, my friends, is for you. But even if you're not, understanding storytelling is crucial to creating art that is emotionally compelling because, as the book suggests, humans are wired for story. In the book, Lisa Cron draws a bridge between the principles that create a good story and the cognition and neuroscience that explains why humans are drawn to those things in the first place. For example, why is anticipation important and how does that relate to our dopamine system? Or why is it that satisfying stories follow a clear cause and effect trajectory, and how does that relate to our pattern recognition and predictive coding? But more than just being theoretical, this book is so practical. Every chapter ends with a checklist, so whenever I'm writing a story of any kind, I go through this. I have a template loaded up on my Notion page. Maybe I should put that in the description of this video. I should do that. I'm gonna do that. Okay, there's gonna be a template. I just decided now. This is gonna be a template in the description of this video that you can check out for free on Notion. So yeah, all in all, whenever I'm writing a story, this book does not leave my side. Now, I mentioned that one of these books right here is one that I'm actually not the biggest fan of, but still recommend for a very specific reason. But before I share that one, let's talk about a book that I think should be mandatory reading for every creative person out there. And that book is Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. If I were to use one word to describe this book, it would be real. It gets to the heart of what it feels like to be an artist and also is just so relatable. The main idea of the book, as the title might suggest, is that there's a difference between good theft and bad theft. Let me show you all this table. Bad theft degrades, good stuff honors. Skims versus study, steal from one versus steal from many, plagiarize versus credit, imitate versus transform, rip off versus remix. And in this, the book gets to this idea that there are no original ideas. Every idea comes from somewhere, and usually when we call something original, it's because it's a combination that we haven't seen before of pre-existing things. For example, take Hamilton, the musical, which is so extraordinarily creative. We take standard Broadway fare, which in and of itself, musical theater, it says in the words right there, musical theater. But then you combine with that hip hop and you combine with that history and you get something that is so inexplicably original. But to be honest, all of these raw materials were already existing. So all in all, this book is really, really close to my heart. This is the one that I gift to my students. This is the one that I gift to my friends. I love this one very, very much. And finally, the book that I am not the biggest fan of, but I still recommend. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Okay, this is definitely a controversial one. So many people love this book. It has changed so many lives. How could you possibly dislike it, Ameer? Well, to be clear, I do think that this book has excellent ideas. The entire idea of morning pages and artist dates helped me recover my creativity when I was so burnt out. But I personally think that the writing is just not it. For me personally, once again, this is just, my own take. I personally found it really flowery, very fluffy, very coddling, a little bit vague, and it's meant to be worked through as a 12-week program, which I personally don't find too helpful because I try to read through books for ideas, and the thought of sticking with the same book, the same idea for 12 weeks just bores me to death. Now, I will admit, maybe I just haven't been approaching it the right way, and as This Is Marketing has suggested, maybe it's just not for me, and that is totally cool. I still respect this work, I still respect Julia Cameron and the impact that this book has had. And at the core of this book and all of the others that I've mentioned today is a single message: just do the work. Okay, but that's definitely easier said than done. I mean, how do you even do that in the first place? Well, it starts with getting rid of distractions, which you can learn more about in this video right here, where I share 7 practical tips for maintaining a healthy relationship with social media. That's all for me today. Thanks for watching.